My mom met someone new, and then all of a sudden she just stopped coming home. And it was one night at a time, and then it became a week at a time until she'd been gone for 3 months. I went to about 13 different schools by the time I was in 11th grade. And so I was constantly moving around. Nothing ever stayed the same. I think even in 5th grade, I knew I wasn't going to be there long. And so I had a British accent the entire year. Nobody knew until parent-teacher conferences when the teacher asked why my mother did not have a British accent. My mom didn't have an easy life. She definitely had it rough. She was beaten as a child, and she unfortunately did not break that cycle. My dad also, very similar upbringing, but he wasn't part of my life. In the age of 7th grade, he changed his number and I didn't talk to him again until I was 17 years old. We chatted a little bit and he said to me, "Tasha, I knew if you survived living with your mom, you'd be someone worth getting to know." Brokenhearted that he would leave me in that situation, knowing what I'd have to go through. Ashley was always my why. I was her protector, and I knew I had to be because nobody else was. And so from a very early age, I was always looking out for her. I remember at a certain point, I think it was probably in 4th or 5th grade, where my father said to me, "Hey, why don't you come move up here to Oregon with me?" And my response to him was, "But who's going to take care of Ashley?" And so I always put Ashley above myself. Stepdad, so he is my sister's father, and he was very, very abusive. Broken bones, cigarettes that were put out on me. He would often try to hide it, so he'd put it in places where people didn't really see. Randomly walk by and shove me down. He didn't like my mom, and he took it out on me. I remember the day he left, I jumped for joy in the carport in 4th grade. Well, he didn't touch her, he didn't hit her, he wasn't abusive to her, but when he left, he just completely disengaged and he left her to fend for herself too. We moved around a ton and we ended up landing in a place in Chandler, and it actually felt like life was kind of normal for a moment. I was a freshman in high school and my mom met someone new, and then all of a sudden she just stopped coming home. And it was one night at a time, and then it became a week at a time until she'd been gone for 3 months. What would you do? You're 14 years old and you've got this 10-year-old girl. I had to figure out ways to take care of her. And so I did everything I could. I babysat, I mowed lawns, I did whatever I could to provide food on the table. And I did everything I could to cover up what was going on. Mom always let us know that if anybody found out about what our home life was like, that CPS would come in and take us away. And so there was that vast fear that I had to keep the show running, even though she wasn't there. It was little by little. I mean, the longer she was gone, the more bills piled up. It first started with our water that got turned off, and I tried to make it fun and exciting. And so we would lather up with soap, and this neighbor's sprinklers would kick on at 6 a.m. and nobody was ever out. And so we'd lather up, and then I'd say, okay, let's see who can jump the highest, or let's see who can run the fastest. And we would go and we would take our showers in the neighbor's yard. And that was fine until the power went off. And so we'd do homework before the lights went out, and then I tried to make it light. And so I would light candles and say we were having a romantic dinner, and we did that for a while too, until there was a knock at the door one day, and there was an officer and a gentleman that owned the home, and they said, "You're being evicted," and asked for my mom. I said, "Well, she's not home." And they said, "Well, you have 15 minutes to get your stuff and get out. If you had 15 minutes, what would you grab?" I did everything I could to make my sister feel like she had everything she needed. We went through her room, we packed up tons of bags, everything we could carry. And I had my backpack and one bag left. And I went into my room and I opened the door and I looked around at the pictures on the wall, things of good memories with friends. Looked at my CD collection, the things that I would listen to drown out the sounds of my home. I looked at the jewelry box that my father gave me, one of the few things I ever got from him. And though there was no jewelry in it, it still was something very, very special to me. But I packed my bags full of clothes and shoes and what I could grab. And as I closed the door, I remember thinking all this stuff is going to be thrown out with devoid of any thought. It doesn't matter to them, but this is my whole life that I'm having to leave behind. And I grabbed everything and I closed each door as I left the house because I needed to close the door on that chapter. It needed to know that there was an end to it. And so we grabbed our stuff, we walked out of the house, and we began this trek trying to figure out where on earth are we gonna go? And if you were in that situation, where would you go? What would you do? I was 14 years old, and here I am, a 14-year-old girl, having a conversation with an adult woman and trying to explain it in the most adult way possible while keeping my composure and letting her know we're having some hard times and it would really, really be very helpful if my sister could stay here and I will pay her way. And luckily she agreed, and I'm sure she knew what was going on, so the kindness of that family was amazing. My sister stayed there, and then I bounced around to different homes for a very long time, many months, until my friends' parents started asking questions. Luckily by this time I was able to get a job, and so I worked 3 jobs in high school. I went and made subs at Galactic Subs, and then I would go to McDonald's where I would change my uniform in the bathroom, and I would go work an entire shift, and then I was a hostess at Perkins on the weekends. And so without anywhere else to go, I started sleeping behind my job at McDonald's, behind the dumpster. So I would let everybody know, I'll take out all the trash. I was too embarrassed to admit that I had nowhere to go. And that was my life for many months. And I would get up, and then I would go to school, and I would shower at school and get ready and just pretend like everything was okay. And that went on for a very long time. Eventually, my mom came back to discover that the home she loved was gone, and my sister ended up moving back in with her. I had already had an apartment, I had a great job, and so I chose not to go back to live with her. She wanted to be with her mom, and my mom was very manipulative, and she managed to convince her that things would be different this time. Mom's not gonna go anywhere. And I knew better. I tried to convince my sister to come live with me, but my mom's had no rules and I had rules, and so my sister stayed with my mom. And things got bad, and I didn't realize how bad they got until I woke up one day to go to work, and there were news reporters on my doorstep. And they asked me, they said, "How do you feel about what happened to your mom and your sister?" And I said, "Well, I don't know what you're talking about." It was told to me on the doorstep that my mother had been arrested for prostituting my sister for drugs. Shock and disbelief and horror and sadness for my sister. And anger that I didn't know. I lost it. I broke down, and I was broadcast all over the news, even on CNN, about what had happened, and I couldn't escape it. And I spent the next almost 7 months of my life running from CPS and hiding. There was a really wonderful caseworker that knew I had a great job and I had a home, and he would call me and he would say, "Tasha, they're coming to get you. You need to leave." And so I would grab everything I could and I would leave. And it was some of the most stressful times of my life. It took me a long time. My sister got sent to group homes, and then she got sent to my grandparents' house. And her dad started to fight for custody for her. And we were at this pivotal moment in a courtroom where I had been fighting for her. I had just turned 18, and her dad was on the other side. And the judge started to say, "Well, we're gonna go ahead and grant custody to Mr." And it was like a movie flash before my eyes. I'm not sure if it was my past or what her future would look like. But regardless, I knew it wasn't gonna be good. And so without thinking, and completely not my nature, something inside me changed. And I slammed my hands on that desk before he could finish casting out his verdict of who would get custody of her. And I slammed my hands so hard that the chair pushed back and hit the railing behind me. And I pointed at this judge and I said, "Do you know who I am?" And he crossed his arms and he rocked back, and I can still hear the leather. And I was sure he was going to yell at me, but I stood firm and resolute because I needed to for her. And he said, "No, why don't you go ahead and tell me who you are?" And I said, "I am Tasha Skousen, and she will be in my home." And he sat there and he thought about it for a minute. And I can't imagine what was going through his mind, but whatever it was, I'm thankful, because he said, "All right, let's go ahead and set up a case study and let's do a home study and let's see what it's like over there." And I went home and got to work. Every room had a fire escape plan posted. Knives were locked up, medications were locked up. Her room was decorated like I could have only imagined she had always hoped it was. And we had fingerprinting, and we had lie detector tests, and we had drug testing, and people would randomly stop by. And I got so good at it that I had a binder. And when the caseworker walked in, the last one that I saw, I walked her through the home, walked her through our fire escape plan, everything I had done to prepare for her to be there. And she looked at me and she said, "This is the first time I've never had to ask a question." And within a week, she was living with me. Everybody has these pivotal moments, these paradigm moments that really define who they are. What moments have those been for you in your life? For me, it wasn't about me. It was about fighting for someone that I loved. And that almost made me feel more confident in what I was doing. So what are you fighting for? Who are you fighting for? Who's writing your story? Dear Ashley, I want to take a moment to express just how much you mean to me. There are so many things I could say, but most importantly, I want you to know that I love you so deeply. You have always been my rock, my confidant. You are my first why, and my source of endless inspiration in my life. When I look back at the woman, sister, and mother I've become, I see so much of you reflected in my journey. You have shown me what it means to never give up, to push through even in the most difficult times, with grace, strength, and determination. Watching you navigate life with resilience and courage has inspired me in ways I can never fully explain. You've taught me that motherhood is about more than just caring for my children. It's about showing up every day, no matter how tired or overwhelmed or insurmountable the trials ahead of me may seem, and giving everything I have because that's what love demands. Your support, your advice, and your unwavering belief and love in me has been the reasons that I've been able to keep going when things felt impossible. When I questioned myself, whether or not I thought I could survive something, your patience, your kindness, and your faith in me, your incredible ability to face any challenge head on, you made me believe that I could be a great mom, and a great person, and a great wife, even on my hardest days. I admire the way you've handled everything that life has thrown at you. You've done it with such grace and tenacity. You've shown me that no matter what happens, giving up is not an option. You've proven that there is always, always something to be thankful for and something to look forward for, even when the path isn't clear, and for that I'm forever grateful. Thank you for being my sister, my friend, and my biggest inspiration. I'm so lucky to have you in my life, and I hope you know just how loved you are and appreciated every single day. With all my love, your sister Tasha.